Thanks for coming, everybody. I would like to call to order the June 21st meeting of the Design Review Board. Will the board and ex officio members please introduce themselves, starting with Cameron?
Cameron Boland, AIA representative.
Laura Siri Cole, Downtown Resident Representative.
Harry Childress, Community Design Center.
John Thurman, Downtown Development.
Matthew DeBard-Laban, Downtown Knoxville Alliance.
Rick Blackburn, Historic Zoning Commission.
Josh Wright, Urban Design Representative.
Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
Suzanne Taravella, Resident Representative.
Mike Reynolds, Knox County Planning.
Dallas DeArmond, Knox County Planning.
Brian Berry with the city's Plans Review and Building Inspections.
Christina McGrawn Stillery, City Law Department.
Nicholas Clancy, Law Department.
Thank you for coming, everybody. The minutes from the April 19th board meeting have been provided. Are there any corrections or modifications? And if not, I'll...
I move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Laura's made a motion. Cameron has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Lindsay, were there any staff recommendations or staff approvals?
Yes, there were several staff approvals since the April meeting. The first one is at 418 South Gay Street. This is a non-illuminated projecting sign measuring 4 feet by 2 feet, 1.5 inches overall. The second was at 700, was not at 700 Henley Street. That's an incorrect address. That's at the Commerce Building on the 100 block of Gay Street. The applicant removed an existing pressure-treated wood rooftop deck and replaced it in kind. So you can see the existing deck in the pictometry rendering on the right, and then a rendering on the left showing the new deck to be reconstructed. It's not visible from Gay Street. At the, this is at 700 Henley Street, the Church and Locust development. This is a revision to a previously reviewed new construction multifamily development. It includes a courtyard level exterior pool that was not included on previous COAs. This pool is located just at the 3rd story at an internal roof deck. It's not visible from the right-of-way on any elevation. And then on the Century Building at 312 South Gay Street, there will be a new non-illuminated projecting sign, a new wall sign, and window signs. The projecting sign here is a sculptural element that will be illuminated by external round lights. And then there's a wall sign that's centered above the primary entry. This is the leftmost entry for this storefront on the signboard area. And then window decals that won't exceed 30% of the window area. And that's it.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to the certificates of appropriateness. We have 706 Walnut Street, 6B23DT. Lindsay, can you give us an overrun on that?
Yes, so this is a relatively minor revision to previously approved drawings. The board reviewed this project initially in April 2022. This is focusing on the north elevation fronting Church Avenue and the leftmost bay on the 2nd through 5th stories, which are now proposed to be partially enclosed with new exterior brick to match the existing brick on the building. These buildings will be smaller, square, and single light storefront windows aligned with the bottom of the following bays. So those windows here. And then on the rear elevation, there are revisions that include a new brick enclosed store area. So just some of the staff comments in the report. So enclosing portions of original window patterns isn't typically considered appropriate. However, there are these proposed modifications to the windows on the 2nd through 5th stories do reflect some previous modifications on the upper level. You can see the existing conditions in this photograph here. However, the existing windows on the 6th through 9th stories, so that's where my cursor is, they're aligned with the flat awnings dividing each story, as opposed to indicated in the drawings, they're aligned with the bottom of these windows that follow. So the staff recommendation or the comment here would just be that the enclosed windows on the 2nd through 5th stories should reflect those on the upper stories in size, placement, and relationship to the other windows. In terms of the rear elevation stairwell, that's located on a secondary elevation, and those materials are compatible with the building. So staff's recommending approval of 6B23DT, subject to the condition that there are revisions to the placement or size of the enclosed windows, with the intent for them to be compatible with the existing windows to be submitted to staff for approval.
Thank you for that explanation. Is there anyone from the development group that would like to speak?
Hello, my name is Hitesh Patel. I'm the architect for the project, and our developer is also Hitesh Patel, and he's sitting behind me. Yeah, these revisions were really due to some code implications with extending the stairwell down and how the fire-rated wall would intersect with the existing exterior glass windows. So hence why the window placements were reduced on the front elevation. And on the back of on the side of the building, we have decided to remove the existing fire escape stair, and due to the proximity of the building to the property line, we wanted to enclose the new one-story stair access to abide by the IBC. That was it. I don't know if you any other questions regarding the revisions.
No, thank you. Is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition? No, thank you. Okay, well, I'll open up questions for the board.
Hitesh, you infilling the doors where you're taking the stair out of the back? It looks like you're infilling that with brick, right? And then
yeah, we're going to infill any existing doors with brick, and then there are going to be guest rooms on that side, so we'll be putting new punched openings that are going to be the same size as what's already existing there in place.
So are you modifying the existing interior stair as why you're
Correct.
having to infill the windows? Is that what
That's
you're saying?
exactly right. Yeah. So what's happening is the existing internal stair only connects to from levels 6 to 9, and then you have that exterior fire escape stair that brings you down. And so what we're doing is we're extending that internal stairwell to go down to level 2, and then we're leaving the ground floor as it is, because not to interrupt Yassine's space.
My only question about the new enclosed stair, so you have thin brick, which I know the building's slated to be painted, so that won't be terribly difficult to make it look congruent to the painted brick. But what about if it's truly enclosed, meaning it's going to have a roof on it, right? Like it's a...
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So in this Revit image, like what's missing is the drip edge from the coping, and is it a flat roof? Is it going to be TPO? Like what stuff's going to be visible as far as the roof system?
I mean, we're going to have a little bit of a parapet to kind of go beyond that, but it would be a TPO roof system.
So there would be a parapet, so you wouldn't be looking directly on it, but from, I guess, the south side, looking at it, you'd be seeing like a white roof.
Correct, yeah. You would see a little bit of that. And the reason for that is because we do have some existing windows we're not to disturb. And we've also got part of our permitting drawings for the building was we have to relocate the grease interceptor or the exhaust that's in Yassine space.
And how are you addressing, are you going to have an internal downspout for water that you catch on the roof?
Yeah, we're going to enclose, we're going to take a look at that. We'll have an internal downspout that connects in.
And there will be last question. There'll be a door on that south?
Yeah, so the way our fire escape egress is the shorter portion of the building there, the shorter part, you'll exit there, and then that's going to be a fire-rated access from there to get up to Walnut Avenue. So even the glazing and stuff is going to be fire-rated there to maintain the egress path.
Okay. I don't think you're going to have many conditions that it'll be apparent, but just with thin brick, since it doesn't have the thickness of masonry when it terminates at that one door that'll be there, just give care to that detailing to where it doesn't look like thin brick, like it'll look how it actually returns into the jam and stuff.
Right.
As depth or maybe no depth. You make the jam engulf or actually envelop the brick so that it just looks like the rest of the masonry on the building.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Lindsay, we already approved the screen and stuff on the previous time? I think it's on the back. It's like on the bottom left.
Correct.
Yeah, I thought so.
Well, if there is no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's all we have as far as certificate of appropriateness today, but we do have nominations for chair and vice chair for 2023 and 2024. If nobody else wants to do it, I can keep doing it, but if somebody else is really itching to do it, it's a little, it's fun. It's
Someone needs to be vice chair. I think it'd be appropriate to spread the opportunity to serve around. So you might want to nominate someone else for vice chair.
Suzanne, how would you feel about being vice chair?
unless I die.
As long as Josh stays healthy, I'm willing to do it.
So I would like to nominate Suzanne.
Second.
And I'd like to nominate Josh for chair.
And I'll just clarify, we'll do a vote at the next meeting, hold the formal election. So if anybody has second thoughts, we can always discuss it further at that meeting.
Thank you. I'll close nominations for today then, and I will, right after this, we have 2 workshops. And since we have 2, we want to make sure that we limit the time period for those workshops to 30 minutes each. And so I'll officially close the board meeting today and move right into the workshops unless anybody needs a break. Does anybody need a break? Okay. So let's just go ahead and move on into the workshops. And so we have the AC Hotel by Marriott.
Yeah. So the format of this, if you want to come up and sort of give a little introduction to the project, share your design intent, sort of talk about the existing conditions you're working with. You can I'll drive through the screen, but you can just tell me next slide or pull up KGIS or whatever you'd like.
Okay.
And then the board will just ask you questions and make some comments.
Yeah, I've got the civil engineer here as well. So we do have some kind of site-related questions regarding the site as well. But I can walk through the plans and kind of the design intent.
Can I, our firm is presenting a project, but this is a close. This is after the meeting. I guess we would intend to recuse ourselves when it comes as an application. But is there a policy on the workshops?
I don't think that it's a problem for you to participate in the workshop.
Okay. Exactly.
All right. So we're proposing a new hotel between Locust and Walnut Avenue. It's currently adjacent to the Daylight Building and between that and the parking deck. It's a pretty skinny site. Do you want to go to the next page, Lindsay? So that's the survey of the existing site here. It's basically a parking lot right now. There's about a 16-foot grade differential between Locust Avenue and Walnut Avenue, the high side being Walnut Avenue. Do we go to the next page? Let's see, probably, do we want to talk? We'll talk about the sidewalks later, but maybe we can go over the basic plan. So on the Locust, let's go to the next page. There we go, we can step. So this is a kind of a site plan that shows both sides at the 2 levels. On the Locust Street side, which is on plan left, is gonna be our service entrance for the hotel. We've got trash, we're gonna have the major utilities, fire command center, back house laundry, things like that. So basically we're viewing everything off of the Locust as more of our service entrance side and using Walnut Street as that's a two-way street, making that the hotel entrance side. So on the ground floor, you'd come in and have a pretty small turnaround. And the goal of this project is really going to be, the majority of the parking is going to be off-site valet for the ownership team. And so we'd bring everybody into the hotel entrance on this side. And really the way that we've designed this hotel is on the ground floor would be the entry, or on this what we're calling the level 1, is the entry sequence to drive into the hotel. And then guests would come up to the hotel entrance into the elevator lobby. And this is actually what we're considering a jump lobby. So the hotel registration, everything, they're going to be going straight to the 7th floor. So if we want to go to, this is the entirety of that level. And so when you come up, this is one level above Locust, but the same level as Walnut. So you see we have a few guest rooms that are going to be on the Locust side. They'll be elevated up 16 feet off of Locust. We've got a fitness center, and really there's all probably primary or private activities for the guests that'll be at the AC. Levels 2 through 6 are all hotel guest rooms. And then you get to level 7, and that's really where a lot of the public area functions are going to be. You come up off the elevator, you have the hotel entrance and the lobby area. You're going to have a rooftop bar component, the required AC kitchen and their AC lounge area. And then you'll have some meeting space as well. This is technically will be considered a high rise. So due to the occupant loads, we've went ahead and incorporated 3 sets of stairs, as well as exhaust shafts and things that are required for a high rise. And then if we want to go to the next slide, we can kind of go over the elevations. So the primary materials that we're using for the building right now is probably some type of a wood look material similar to an Ichiha, and then metal panel primarily around the building. We've had some design direction from Marriott we had to oblige by as well. So we've got brick at the ground floor, that's kind of turning into Locust and Walnut Street, and above that metal panel, and we've got an Ichiha that's highlighting the rooftop bar on the back, as well as the hotel sequence and entrance on the front of the building as well. And on the left hand, on the plan, the page right, you kind of see a description of all the exterior materials that we're planning to use. In the next 2 pages, we've got more blown up elevations. And so based on the district that we're in, the downtown, the DKG district, we view Walnut Street as our front-facing entrance, I guess we do have a few questions about that regarding how we've met the transparency requirements, but then what is the, I guess, drive entry sequence really considered at that point? Because obviously it's just a void, so I'm assuming that we would be, our percentage of glazing is really paid attention to the percentage facade that's along Walnut, and then on the back is more of just a public-facing. Locust is we're considering kind of the rear, but it's more of a public-facing entrance. So we've tried to maintain our entrance sequences as well, and then having access as service entrance and access that's required for trash and loading and things like that. I think Jason, do you want to? I think we had some questions as well regarding, we've got our sidewalks kind of worked out along Walnut Street. I know we had some questions about the Locust Street due to the grade differential between one end and the other.
Yeah, so if you want to, there's a page that's got an enlarged sidewalk plan with some elevation stuff. So yeah, that one there. Yeah, so the top one's just showing the Walnut Street side, which there's not as much grade change occurring on it as there is on the Locust side, but this side would have our primary garage entrance, so we would just have a lowered driveway ramp per TDOT standards. The uphill side will have like a 15-foot long curb ramp just to stay in accordance with ProWAG to meet ADA standards. So that one's pretty straightforward. I guess the Locust Street side has pretty steep grades to deal with, so we got about 11.5. It kind of varies across it, but the steeper area is about 11.5%, matching the road profile grade. So I guess a couple questions. One would be, we've got a trash enclosure access, and then there's a stairwell connection.
Mm-hmm. It's a fire egress stair. There's a fire egress stair connection on the plan left-hand side, and we got electrical on the plan right-hand side.
Yeah, so what we're showing on this plan is holding basically a 6.5-foot wide sidewalk from back of curb to match the city standards. And then this would match the roadway profile with a 1% cross slope. So all of our connections into the building are going to have to warp pretty greatly just to match, just to make up for that difference in grade. I think we included an alternate plan where we looked at basically pushing the sidewalk up against the building and then creating some landscape zones to try to transition some of those grades. But the biggest challenge we've got right now is just how our slope interacts with the building connection itself.
Have you guys scheduled a pre-submittal conference with plans review and inspections and the engineering department?
No, we haven't yet.
Okay. Because I would say these types of questions are probably a little bit better directed for them. That's the meeting that you can schedule with Brian and Peter's department.
Yes, you can reach out to Jen Scobie, and I can give you her email. I'll email you her contact.
Because that'll give you the opportunity to sit down with the different aspects of the different folks in the engineering department and the fire marshal and ask those kinds of questions. This board is primarily focused, we'll talk about the sidewalk in terms of the pedestrian experience, pedestrian safety and access, and sort of activating that streetscape level. But mostly what this board is focused on is exterior design.
Okay. Yeah, I guess part of the reason I was bringing that up was to ask if there's any kind of street furniture or landscape, any of those things that might impact these grades, and how we work with engineering, I guess, on meeting the sidewalk accessibility portion.
Yeah, in terms of the street furniture and the landscaping, there are design guidelines associated with that. However, they are guidelines and not requirements. And I think with the drive aisle and the access, I think your concern there is probably going to first and foremost be safety and sight distance and all of that. The guidelines do say plant street trees where possible, but a lot of those are focused more on the public realm and the public rights of way. So you guys won't have a specific requirement from the design guidelines to do those.
Is that rear drawing that's up there and the rear rendering the same design, or did it change a little bit?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The rear rendering that's in our packet and this plan view on the rear?
It's a little different at the ground floor, yeah.
Well, I would say my overall, it looks like a great project. My biggest concern is treating Locust like an alley, because that's a primary street. I'm not kind of buying the argument that that's the back of the building, because it's a primary street. So I think you have two primary entrances, and we as this board have to treat it that way. So all of the requirements that would be required for an entry would be required for Locust as well.
I agree strongly. As someone who, I live at the Pembroke, which is just one block over. And I guess, you know, the first thing is the daylight building isn't going to really be daylight on the backside of that building once this goes up. And the second thing I like to point out is, are you going to allow pets in your hotel? Dogs?
Oh, that'd be a developer question.
Well, it's just good to think about where are those dogs going to go to the bathroom with trees and landscaping. So
yeah, understand. I'll
as
bring
someone
up
who
those
lives on
concerns.
that street and watches dogs, just
What is the distance between your project and the daylight building?
On the side there, we're pretty close to the property line. I think we're probably within, on that front facade there, we're probably under 10 feet. And then the building kind of pushes back as you get in the middle.
So is that some kind of alley space, or is it going to be gated off?
It'll be gated off. It's not intended to be accessed.
Okay.
And I'm guessing you have some sort of agreement with that parking lot next door to where they're going to let you keep those windows? Because you can't put windows on a property line like that unless you have an agreement with the owners.
We meet the, I guess, percentage of glazing requirement per the IBC. I don't think I realized you needed it. So do we need like a
Well, how far off are you at that property line?
We're probably, I think there it's within 5 feet.
Josh, are you referring to the side elevation?
Yeah, that one.
lot?
That one there.
Yeah.
That
on,
one
on
we're
both
further
sides,
back.
they actually stepped the building back a little bit from. So if you look at the ground floor, it actually comes out to closer to the lot line, but then they step back where the hotel rooms are.
Okay, I just didn't want you to have windows there, and then somebody comes in and puts a big blank wall right in front of your windows. Plus, there's fire code issues with what that glazing is, of course.
Yeah, so we've met the IBC requirements in terms of percentage of openings adjacent to the property line and how close we are and the percentage that's allowed. So no, I know we're not exceeding that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hitesh, besides the parking or the drive aisle on, what is that, Walnut, how are you meeting the retail requirement on the first floor, like on Locust and I guess part of Walnut?
So we have a space designated on Walnut there. That's at the front there.
Is that what it's showing there?
Yeah.
Okay.
For Locust, it's a little bit harder because we've got so many utility requirements that we're having to contend with regards to fire command center, the electrical room, trash and loading and service, and we didn't want to combine those activities with the guest side. So that's how we moved it all to the Locust side.
Can you go back to the Locust side? So
That's Walnut. That's Locust. Sorry.
Yeah, the other one then.
Walnut Street.
Walnut. Walnut. So what is the exterior lighting between those two buildings? Because, for example, one of my favorite restaurants has open windows butted up to the back there. So what kind of lighting is now going to come in that formerly wasn't? And what's the plan? Because I see it looks like a light right there. Yes.
Yeah, right now, I don't know if we've worked out the entire lighting concept for that, but I guess is a concern that there needs to be lighting on that facade? Because right now it's residential.
As in no lighting, because there formerly wasn't lighting. So if you're looking from the interior of the restaurant or the residence above or below, and you're looking out right now, it's just a tree. There's 2 trees. There's some open space in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're building up, and you have exterior lighting now coming in those windows. I'm just saying, is it bold? Is it what's the plan?
I don't.
Is any?
I don't think
No
we intend to
exterior
put too many lights on that facade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you go back to the other rendering, please? That one. I like your outdoor patio up there. I think you're going to be challenged with that western face exposure in the sun, particularly in the summertime. It'll be pretty hot up there.
Yeah.
And I know it's just totally outdoors, so you might think about screening or something like that.
We are going to provide, we are thinking about some type of screening material also just for the wintertime for inclement weather. So we have had a conversation with the ownership teams in terms of how to get that screened for inclement weather as well as during the wintertime. So they can utilize it not only in the summer, but the winter. And the goal is this isn't just for the guests that are going to be there. It's supposed to be, we're trying to draw the community team or community up there too, to the rooftop. So
to that comment, is there a certain view you're trying to frame to the west rather than south towards the Smoky Mountains?
I think our concern is on the other side where there's a pretty tall parking deck on the other side of Walnut. So I'm not sure. For us, it'd be like you'd be looking out towards the parking deck.
No,
at the top
I
floor.
meant south, like back towards the Pembroke and behind you. I was just wondering. I'm not designing it. I'm just saying, like, if the western face is an issue, that west patio could just rotate to that blank facade that's currently there and look the other direction, which would still be south facing and still have heat gain issues. So
yeah,
I'm just saying, I'm wondering, like, are you trying to frame a certain view that way? Or
yeah,
not?
I think they're trying to encapsulate some of the World's Fair Park if we can try to get to it. Yeah, based on the height, and then the other was the structural concerns with how we're locating structure on that side of the building, because we had to kind of maintain there's a certain type of minimal opens we could have on that facade, and not only with how close we were to the property line, but also how we're dealing with the structure on that side of the building.
What?
Have-
Oh, go ahead.
No,
Rick.
no, keep on.
You mentioned there is retail at the Walnut Street side.
We
and
have a
that-
space designated. I don't know if it's called retail quite yet, but we do have some openings there that we're trying to figure out how we're going to utilize that.
Okay. But just a couple of discussion points on the materials and the lighting and that sort of thing. So you've got metal panels. So is this a pack clad, like standing seam metal, or is it all flat metal? Like how do you, these are pretty large pieces of metal. Like how do you keep those from oil canning on the white pieces that are called out to be metal paneling?
I think we're designing around the Americlad system, and so in terms of that, I guess I don't know if I have a specific answer right now for that.
Just if it's
concern.
like a Lucabond or a other, so is it like an insulated metal panel is what you guys are thinking?
It was going to be, I think right now it was going to be, well, yeah, I think that was one thing we're working out with a contractor.
Right.
Because we've talked to 3 different GCs. And so talking to them, there's a good chance that we might be doing a panelized system that's insulated that they can deliver to the site with exterior material and finish installed.
Yeah.
That conversation hasn't been completed yet.
I guess that blasted south facade, if it does get quite a bit of light, I'm imagining that metal starts to be a little bit wavy over time. So that's something to keep in consideration.
Sure.
When I first saw this, I was like, oh, it's not a bad diagram of how the top material wraps. The brown is what I saw. I thought that in my head it was almost like copper or something like that. Then I saw that you labeled it as wood look. And since this is a workshop, we're talking about design, I would feel like when you see something like that, that's such a monolithic material, like wood would be more used for like an accent material rather than like such a prominent, like you've got A and B, you've got 3 materials, brick, metal, wood look. I think it, in my opinion, would be more successful if that was not wood look. I mean, just go ahead and make it a solid color and let it be what it is, and then if you have wood look anywhere, it's more for like accent pieces. Again, that's just my opinion. Because that material, or even if it was wood or isn't actual wood, it's wood look, is a bit foreign to I feel like the concept and aesthetic of that project in general. And then another one on the lighting. So you've got like a little snip of what those bands are that rise up from the east of that facade. What's going on with those?
So that image is just an inspiration image of how we're going to be lighting the inside of the parking as you're driving in. So it's not like an afterthought, but it's actually going to be an entry sequence of arrival to the front door.
But those bands that rise up don't have anything to do with that. Those aren't being lit. That's just an architectural element.
We were backlighting those. Sorry, I think I misunderstood.
Yeah, and I think if that's the case, then we would definitely, as a board, want to see a rendering or example of how that would look. There's probably a plethora of reasons why or why not it can be exactly that way, but that'd be a pretty prominent part of that design to have that lit at night and very tall, being so many stories.
So we had in working with Marriott through the initial concepts too, we did have a limited portion to your concern about the wood look. And they felt that we needed a little bit, they wanted to draw more attention to how the entry sequence and the guest arrival was, hence why we've kind of brought that down. And they wanted a little bit more warmth to the palette other than just metal panels. So that was the introduction of the wood material to the building.
But like even you can get that warmth with patina and that's, I mean, you're not going to get copper or something or terracotta on this project, I'm sure, but maybe just lean into that tone, tone of that color is warm.
Yeah.
And the granularity of the wood imprint may not be there, but maybe there's other ways to achieve it. I would just think the project would be more successful to not be that much of wood look and just say, all right, we are a solid material of something else that has texture maybe, but not imitating wood on that part. It seems very foreign to downtown too. It's like if you squinted and covered up the white, it's an all wood building on that facade. It just seems foreign.
Hitesh, you said that you'd talked to a couple of general contractors.
Mhm.
Have you priced these drawings?
Not yet, no.
And then just a general curiosity, where is your laydown area and where are you going to stage this while you build it?
Yeah, so that's one of the conversations we have had. That's part of the reason we're trying to introduce the more panelized systems that could come to the site. And they have tried to also take a look at potential crane locations as well. So I don't think they've formally made the whole decision, but that is a consideration that's been made about lay down. And we also, the owner owns the site that's off Walnut Street as well. So that could potentially be a lay down site during construction.
I had a couple of comments about plan. If you want to talk some more about elevation first, Suzanne.
Nope, I want to talk about Plan 2.
Okay, if you could pull up C101. I think it's that one. Yeah, it's where we were talking about in the front on Walnut. Of course, one concern I am always charged with bringing from the design center is the notion of crossing sidewalks with cars. And we discussed this in the office and really couldn't find another way to get your check-in to work without coming across the sidewalk with the car. But that really breaks down this notion of keeping our ground floor retail and transparency to the street and people spaces. So on the Walnut Street side, I can't tell what the little square things are, but it looks like there's an opportunity to make the space from Walnut Street back to the stairwell a more viable retail space.
Okay.
Or something to go in there that engages the public and brings the street in, and the little rectangular things that are on the Walnut Street side of the stairwell could move to the four parking space side of the stairwell so that you could still have those uses there.
I think we had bike parking there adjacent to the stairwell. And I think the goal was also whenever and I know it kind of varies from the rendering because we're obviously in design mode, but the distance between that retail and the exterior wall, that was part of our trying to bring the because of the great one was grade that's happening across Walnut, but also being able to have the guests come out adjacent to the retail on Plan South versus coming across, having to be adjacent to the drive aisle. But I do understand the concern about crossing over Walnut while cars are coming in and out.
So the space between the little retail square and these, I guess that's the south wall toward the daylight, that is intended for the clients to go out to Walnut Street rather than along the
drive aisle. Correct.
I understand. It's just looking for opportunities to expand that retail and public engagement in that corner. Maybe other ways where you could keep the guest exit over on the drive side, but find another way to screen them from it, or expand the retail back to the stair. Really seems to make it a more viable space. And then I have a similar comment on the Locust Street side, and this is sort of responding to the comment of that not being an alley, and it is a public space where you would like to engage similarly with the public. And this floor plan is different from the one that I had initially, and we have a space toward the garage that in the first plan I had the garbage in it. But the later one I was seeing had the trash on the south side where the transformer room is. Just some way to align those services to one side to where back on the Locust side you could also have a corner dedicated to some sort of retailer office or some space that's not all back of house.
Yeah.
And bring up, I know that service entrance off the back is not really intended to be a grand entry, but it would be a very convenient entry for the guests to come and go from the fair site and from Chesapeake's and from other places that they would want to go, to where you could make a little more of that as an entrance and have some accompanying retail on either the garage corner. I think grade may behave better on the garage corner than the Union corner up there, and have your trash dock on the upper one as a loading dock space. But just looking for ways to achieve the public engagement and the access and make that less of a secondary space.
I think even moving the employee break room out to where the employees get light. I know Marriott likes that type of thing, and they're requiring much higher quality break rooms these days. But that may help you keep all the back of house still there, but still feel like there's activity and engagement on that street.
Sure. I think we can talk to KUB and see what their thoughts are about inboarding some of that transformer room and if they're okay with that.
Can you describe if it's valet parking and they're valet parking them at Walnut? Does that mean that Walnut Street will perpetually have cars parked with their flashers on, or is there a place for a bulb in to be able to pull? No, there's not, because there's sidewalk there. Is there a shoulder for them to park in the plan? I was thinking, like, what's going to happen to that street when it's 7 stories of humans or 6 stories of bodies, and they're all single cars are pulled up to the front to get let out, and then their car leaves to get parked. There's going to be a lot of congestion there. How's the valet going to work?
So that you can drive under, I guess you're talking about the stacking issues of being underneath the building?
No, I just at the street itself, like on Walnut. Maybe I'm not understanding how it would work, but when people they will pull in to be valet parked. Okay, there we go. Good.
They're gonna pull in, and then they'll be able to hand their. We got a small valet office on that level there, so they'll be able to pull underneath the building completely, and then drop off their keys to valet and park
that's
elsewhere.
Nice for that, but then there will be a congestion moment, but there's also congestion moments on Gay Street and other roads with these type of projects.
We just have a few more minutes. If anybody has anything that they want to jump in with that hasn't had a chance to, please do that.
I just had one comment about the locust elevation, which I think is the stickiest part of the project because of what we've already talked about, that Locust is a viable city street and needs to be treated that way. I wondered if there's any opportunity for balcony or Juliet balcony on those rooms at the back to try to activate that side of the building a little bit more on the guest rooms. I know it's raised above the street, but I think anything you can do on that elevation to treat it like an active street and not an alley would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Suzanne, that's similar to like above Eddie's health shop. They've got the balconies, but then the parking garage below, so it's a similar condition, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of comments that you'll probably hear from city engineering. Look like you had some doors that will open up over the property line, over the public sidewalk that would require easements. My guess that, especially on the Walnut side, the sidewalk's a lot thinner and you probably won't get that approved. You might need to push those back. Okay. And the entrance, the access to Walnut for the vehicles, engineering is going to be looking for sight distance, particularly for pedestrians on the sidewalk, for vehicles exiting. So you might not be able to, you might need to push things back a little bit to be able to get the proper sight distance. Definitely talk to them about that. Have you thought about having a one-way drive aisle that goes from either Locust to Walnut or Walnut to Locust rather than having like the turnaround and exiting all on Walnut?
We did look at that. There's just, in order to get that all internally done, there was the grade differential is pretty significant to get it to, I think it was trying to get the services on each side of the road, especially the ground floor utilities, and then being able to also get the differentials of the, we did look at it, I promise, but there was like a lot of different things that were happening that we couldn't get it to work. That was actually the client's first choice, but we couldn't get everything to fit that we needed to utility-wise and being able to connect everything that we needed to on the ground, that lowest level, to get it to work right.
Yeah. And then I guess this might be my last comment, but I would like to see on the final plans when you submit how the interaction between the back of the Daylight building and the parking garage will work, particularly with the access to the rear residential to the Daylight building because they have those basement level.
Yep.
So just kind of maybe like even like a cross section or something that shows like how that's all going to work together.
Well, thank you so much for coming out and having this discussion with us. We appreciate your time. And if you have any other, questions or anything, let Lindsay know.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
All right. Now we have some luxury apartments to look at.
Your favorite type.
Thanks for coming, guys.
I'm
Please
Sean
introduce
Hackett with
yourselves.
MHM Architects.
Scott Busby with Smee Busby Architects.
And so we're presenting Vintage Cal Luxury Apartments. It's currently going to take the place of street parking. If we go to the site plan, adjacent to Marble Alley Lofts and across the street from State Street Garage along State Street and Union Avenue. Currently, the plan is to build 160 apartment units, around 4,400 square feet of leasable office space, and then a 2,000 square foot retail space. So if we go to the existing site plan, it's an existing surface parking lot. It's partially below street level. The further north you go along State Street. And then it's adjacent to the KUB substation with the concrete wall surrounding it. If we go to the floor plans, here's our diagram kind of explaining what our thinking was. So we saw the kind of pink red zone, which is right on the corner of State Street and Union Avenue as the most prominent corner. So we placed the retail tenant space in that corner specifically. And we saw as you go further down State Street towards Marble Alley Lofts, there's more towards a private zone. So that's where we put 7 townhomes along that street front. And then we moved the parking garage entrance as far to the north as possible.
This is a two levels of parking. One is at State Street level, and one is actually down below, accessed off of Union, and then 5 levels above that.
Correct. And then we do have some office amenities kind of in between the retail tenant and the another group of office space in the purple color. The red color would be the townhomes, and the yellow is apartment, fitness, and back of house kind of areas. The green is a covered portion where the second level cantilevers across and creates a porch.
Proceeding for the whatever.
For the
cafe
retail
or coffee
tenant.
shop is there.
And then this is the second floor plan. We have 2 opposite sky gardens, we're calling them. They're amenity spaces that are open air for the tenants. And then the apartment blocks create a S shape along the site. If you go next. This is that basement plan. You enter the parking garage off Union Avenue down a fairly steep hill adjacent to the KUB substation. And then we have another 110 parking spots down there, bringing us to a total of 167. And this is from the corner of State Street and Union Avenue, where you will see we have a cantilever portion of the building over the top that retail area. And so our main 3 materials you're seeing are a gray brick along the back side of that parking garage on the podium. And then it repeats itself on a pattern along State Street in a rhythm denoting kind of solid walls behind. And then at the entrances, we've used this wood look material to kind of note, entrances, and that carries all the way up through the building at the balconies. Then the rear is, you see the brick turning around the parking garage partially, and then it turns into cast in place concrete where it butts up against the KUB retaining wall. The main material you're seeing on the facade here is a Nichiha masonry-like product. It is fiber cement, but is as close as we get to masonry within the budget requirements we have. The carved away materials you see at the corner is a Nichiha rib panel to resemble more of a ribbed corrugated metal panel. And so this is a view of the retail tenant space from the street level. And you see the cantilevered portions coming up over our head, and then we have a sunscreen over the storefront.
There's a pretty drastic grade drop across State Street from north to south there that we're having to incorporate the entrances.
Right, so we have a couple stairs leading up into the space to create, more open to the street front. But as you move further up towards State Street, the slab does step up quite a bit. And so some of the residences have larger staircases, but it decreases as you go further north towards the parking garage. And then each of these stoops, we're calling them, in front of the townhomes has a perforated metal screen to kind of create a sense of privacy so they can actually be occupied and feel like they're lived in rather than empty all the time. And here are some elevations just showing the materials and their locations. So you'll see the fiber cement panel, the grays, is the main material. And you have these carved away strips along where the windows and the balconies are. And then at the entrances, we put the vintage wood, the fake wood panel, faux wood, sorry. And then on the backside, there's cast in place concrete at the podium level on the parking garage. And that's the fourth material.
But you can't really see it all from.
Yeah, you can't see it from James White Parkway because of the KUB retaining wall. Those are the north and south elevations.
Can you talk about how you're going to address accessibility for the public spaces on the corner?
Yeah. So
go to the plan view of State Street. Or no.
Yeah. So there is a dashed. At some point in the grade, there is a level portion where you can get up and over to the retail. So where there's a dash line along the green, to your left a little bit.
Go right where the
right
purple
there.
block is, right there.
Yeah, that is on grade, and so they'll be able to wheel or get onto that platform and get over to the retail tenant.
And the steps are just providing access points at the corners and at the entrance to the leasing office.
We had one question come up from Dustin in my office, who is our never drive across the sidewalk guy. I noticed this is called Marble Alley Partners. I think I saw here. Is there any relation of this project to the Marble Alley Apartments and to that complex?
There is.
Because the question would
physical relationship
or ownership and operation. I know the Industrial Development Board owns the other one, through that process.
sold, right?
But so it has been sold since KGIS.
Yes, it's just not listed in it's not been updated in KGIS.
As the question that came up, would there be a way for the two to share a single garage entrance rather than have two garage entrances next to each other?
I don't believe that's possible. Different tenant groups, and then the levels are very different. There's, I think, 23 different slab heights for the Marble Alley.
22. Okay. That was just the question looking in plan. Would there be, having these redundant entrances, is there a way to put them together?
Right next to the site, just to the plan left of that, is their massive trash compactor and garbage thing that pretty much.
Well, all the electrical things are there too.
Yeah. Having cross access is difficult.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think the retail is a mistake. I love the scale, 2,000 square feet, because that means a local tenant can afford it. That's $25 a square foot. That's just over $4,000. So I love that scale. I think putting one retail tenant on an island is going to be tough for you to fill. And I think the Cal Johnson building is a example of that across the street where they've not been able to put a tent in there. It's a big space, and that also makes it difficult. I also think that there's future development potential in the parking garage where Mast is. We would want them to have retail there as well. And so I think if you could bring some more retail, and I understand development dollars, but I think if you could bring one or two other spaces in there with it, it would, one, complement the public more, be closer to meeting our guidelines, and then set them up for success instead of sitting there in failure. So.
The purple is offices. Is that rental?
Yep, leasable office space.
So could be either retail or office. That one, yeah, that she has the hand on right now.
I mean, yeah, if a retail comes in and wants it, then it's kind of the powers of
Well, they could potentially have 2 spaces there, and then the other is the yellow is amenities for the tenants.
And the
correct?
leasing office, correct. And
model unit, leasing office, fitness center, post office, mailboxes.
Lindsay, as far as our design guidelines go, does, a single retail space of 2,000 feet meet the intent, or is that for us to interpret?
I think that's for the board to interpret.
Have you talked
Well,
to?
it would be, if you're leasing those offices too, that would,
Those are the leasing offices.
no, they're
No, the
intended
offices
to be
are
rented
part
by the
Oh,
public.
they are.
Leased office space.
Okay.
Executive office. Small,
Got you.
small
Okay.
Yeah.
businesses, yeah.
Okay.
With new SME bed, but the headquarters there.
Or I get you're saying that if somebody wanted it, they could make it retail. Like if I wanted to put my boutique in there,
It's up to the developers and the numbers.
of course. But I do like that you're actually making stoops that interact with the street rather than just a
Right.
blank glass wall. The stoop, I think, is a wonderful urban tool.
Yeah, I like how it looks from the street. So, again, I live downtown. I walk it every day. So I like that we had the potential landscaping right in front of each. My big thing are dogs. Anyone who lives downtown, dogs don't have a place to go. They go in the middle of the street. That's one thing.
And hopefully people are sitting on those stoops and
Yeah.
talking to people passing
Yeah.
by.
I like the engagement.
To Matthew's question, one of the relevant guidelines that we point to for this is encourage first floor uses that draw walk-in traffic. And to me, those stoops do sort of fulfill that potential in a way, having that engagement with the street.
Have you talked to city engineer yet? I'm sorry, about having the garage entrance on State Street so close to the Marble Alley garage access point? And it appears that I guess you're gonna have to modify the on-street parking. Is that right? So that a space or two will have to go away.
I believe so. Yeah.
Civil has, our engineers have had meetings with the city and with the trash guys and with, several other folks. I don't know if that question particularly has been addressed.
Okay.
About that.
I just see a potential conflict with vehicles exiting at the same time or whatnot, and then also the Frogger for pedestrians. And then I didn't really look at this, but the access to Union Street in regard to the access to the parking garage across the street, and whether there's left turn conflicts that might happen there. 2 cars pulling out, and well, I guess it was hopefully not. I guess you may not, yeah, because it's going into different lanes, but they're close, and they might be too close.
We'll definitely look into that.
Do we need to show those on the plans?
It's just more of an engineering question, like make sure that everything functions properly, because especially the garage across the street is pretty big and busy. This one is smaller, so hopefully we won't have as many cars coming out and going every day.
The joint meeting, have you met with all the staff?
Where is your trash?
In that yellow box directly left of the garage on the plan left.
So what they have concierge trash service. So on each floor is a trash room, and every night somebody comes and they pick up the trash and they take it down and put it in the bins. And then on trash days, which we think will be at least 3 times a week or maybe more, they'll roll them out to that first parking space just to the right of the entry in in an enclosure, and pick them up and then roll them back in immediately after that. Because everything on Union Avenue down at the first floor where we really wanted it to happen was just too steep, and they couldn't make it work.
Are there any occupancy limitations to having that office space be retail as far as, if it turned into a coffee shop or store or something, would that be a problem?
We'd have to look at plumbing counts.
And we'd have to create a secondary entrance because I'm sure it'd be over 50 occupants.
There's some pretty good public-private separations that everything basically, that hallway back on the back, that line sort of creates, on the right side, that's private back there. Everything down below that side is public. And so there's limited access to be able to go back to there unless you're living in the apartment complex. The left side is more, offices are more public, in and out. They have their own restroom.
So, especially that purple bar along the back, are those intended to be individual use offices or a company leasing the whole space and using that as their office space?
They have this model set up in multiple projects around Tennessee, and they lease them out individually.
Individually?
Yeah.
Yeah, primarily to the tenants of the apartment building. So if you wanted a secondary workspace rather than your studio apartment. But then it would be open to public as well, if they didn't fill them.
And we're looking at putting some maybe high clear story windows that at least let light in from the garage side into those offices.
Does anybody on the board have thoughts on exterior design, materials?
I like the exterior design.
You can thank Cameron.
Were you involved, Cameron?
At one point, it's gone through about 4 different hands. But I originally had it, we had masonry on it, and then because of like everything, budget filled it.
Yeah.
Should I say something about the wood look since you're recused?
Everybody's doing that. I guess that's the thing. I did have a question. When you had the close-up of the corner there, and I don't know if this is just a scale of rendering issue, but the scale of that block looks like CMU scale rather than brick scale.
Yeah, it's brick.
It's brick.
It is brick.
Okay.
I am not a good renderer.
Yeah, there's an adjustment in Revit where.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't CMU.
No.
Even a.
It's a general shale brick product. It's kind of a very dark gray color.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about changing the tenant access entry to look a little less like a storefront entry? I don't know when I'm looking at this image, I just don't know which one's the residential entrance. And
we don't have signage either shown at the moment.
We did leave signage off just to kind of not obscure the conversation because I know that is a separate permit or review. But there would be signage on top of the louvered awning above each entrance denoting the use and tenant.
I see what you're saying, though. I think
Yeah.
We might could do something that kind of calls that, even if it's breaking the canopy a little bit. We're doing something with the canopy. Of course, there'll be signs and stuff like that.
And one thing to note is we're exploring a mural option on the underside of that soffit. We're going to work with the Public Arts Commission.
Like the ceiling of it?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, could be kind of cool.
Can you
What?
clarify what you mean? That is,
Yes.
the ceiling would be a mural?
Potentially.
Well, does anybody else have any comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming for the workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess we're all done. Thanks, everybody.